I support H.R. 5163, which would prohibit outdoor camping on public property in the District of Columbia. On March 28th, President Trump signed an executive order titled Making the District of Columbia Safe and Beautiful, which sought to restore order to our capital city. A key aspect of this plan is directed the National Park Service to remove homeless encampments on federal land. Under this legislation, a person shall be fined not more than $500, imprisoned for not more than 30 days, or both for camping on public property. This is a very important step to making our nation's capital safe for residents and visitors.
If you somehow needed yet another example of the Republican Party showing how little they care about protecting human life, look no further than H.R. 5163, sponsored by this MAGA clown, Representative William Timmons.
They expect and they deserve to see a capital city that is clean, safe, and welcoming. When our public spaces are overtaken by encampments, that sense of order and pride is lost. Not just for visitors, but for the residents of the district who use these streets every single day. My bill, the Clean and Managed Public Spaces Act, or the CAMPS Act, bans camping on public property in D.C., ensuring that the capital of the greatest country in the world reflects the dignity, safety, and pride of its people. And when you get down to it, that is what this bill is about. People. Allowing individuals to sleep in tents on the streets is not compassion. It is neglect. A tent is not housing. A sidewalk is not a home. And leaving men, women, and families exposed to the elements, to crime, to addiction, and to despair is the opposite of what a caring society should do.
Don't be fooled by Timmons' performative outrage here. If he were legitimately concerned with eliminating homelessness and showing real compassion towards unhoused people, he wouldn't be arguing for a bill that would criminalize their mere existence. These kinds of resolutions do nothing to address the root causes of homelessness and crime. They simply criminalize and demonize visible forms of poverty.
By passing the CAMPS Act, we send a clear message. America's capital city will be clean, managed, and worthy of the nation it represents. At the same time, we reaffirm our commitment to helping the most vulnerable, not by abandoning them to sleep in unsafe tents, but to ensure they have a real chance at recovery, stability, and dignity. All that this does is give law enforcement the ability to get these people off the streets and get them help. Functionally, a conditional discharge would be given. They would be sent somewhere to get the mental health counseling, the drug addiction counseling, whatever they need to get back on their feet. This is not going to result in criminal penalties. This is going to give law enforcement the tool to get these people the help that they need. By the way, file an amendment if you have a better idea. But I'm not going to have people come here and tell them that they can't walk to dinner. They can't walk around the mall. That's just completely unacceptable. For the last 6.5 years, I've been doing that. If you want to say, let's provide additional services to allow these people to get back on their feet, I'm all in. But what this does is it takes them off the street and it gives the city of D.C. the ability to force them into safe conditions where they can shower, where they can have a toilet, where they can get food and clothes and mental health counseling and drug addiction counseling. That is what we need to do. That is the humane thing to do. And it is immoral. It is immoral to allow these people to live under bridges, cold, hot, rain, whatever it is. It is immoral to allow them to defecate in the streets. It is immoral to allow them to harass our visitors. And we're not going to stand for it. President Trump has put an end to it. He signed an executive order bringing in the National Guard. And I tell you what, it doesn't matter who they voted for. The district's residents are happy. They are, it is palpable. It is palpable the way that this city has changed. Everyone is safe. If the city of Washington, D.C. refuses to enforce its own criminal code, we are going to give federal law enforcement the tools to do what they refuse to.
When I listen to his arguments about why his resolution should pass, it gives me anxiety, especially for so many homeless people, right? Because when has law enforcement working with homeless people getting them off the street, right? And taking them to different facilities, to get treatment and so on and so forth. I'm sure it'll be a clean, orderly process. Absolutely not. And then you also have to look at the fact that there is so much hypocrisy of being a MAGA Republican while claiming to care about being compassionate to unhoused people. It's rich in hypocrisy, so rich.
Because the problem here is you're not looking to solve homelessness, you're looking to hide it. You're not looking to provide an alternative to living on the street, you're looking to brush it away to another place.
Will the gentleman yield?
And not yet. And I think it's important. The other thing is the sponsor of this bill brought up, well, we're just giving them a tool. The tool is criminalization. That's the tool that you're handing federal law enforcement, that they can be fined and jailed. Further putting people who are having a tough time in life living on the streets into this cycle. You were talking about supporting services. Well, you have a chance. Donald Trump's FY26 budget, he wants to cut HUD by 44%. I'll yield to you if you can tell me if you're going to stand up to that. You were saying that you want to have services for people. This would make massive cuts to affordable housing, homeless services, rental assistance, all the things that help us keep people off the streets. Will you join us in opposing that?
That's a great talking point. We both know that the funding's not going to be different. So I mean,
the funding will be different.
A budget is an aspirational
for the programs.
document.
I'll reclaim my time. The number for the programs that help homeless services will go down. Do you support that?
The president's budget is always an aspirational document, and we both know. And again, what
I'll reclaim my time. Are you saying
about,
it doesn't matter what the? I mean, your president's saying he wants to cut HUD by 44%.
We have $37 trillion
I'll
in debt
reclaim
on
my
a $2
time.
trillion annual
I'll reclaim my
deficit.
time. 44%. He wants to cut HUD. He wants to cut homeless services for your district and my district. Do you agree with that? I'll yield if you can answer yes. Yes or no. Really.
You and I both know that the funding will be no different than last year.
Oh, so
we're going to move forward.
So you'll work at opposing the president's request.
I know how this system works, and I know that it requires 60 votes in the Senate to change government funding, and we're not going to get 60 votes to do anything. So we're going to have a CR. But again, how are you going to help the 5,600 people? You say that this
I'll
is
reclaim
not a tool.
my time. How are we going to help them? By fighting to ensure that the president and your party doesn't further erode the little services that we have in this country. We need housing, not handcuffs. We have a housing crisis in this country.
Well, the gentleman yield.
Every time the rent goes up $100, homelessness goes up 9%. Let me say it one more time. Every time the rent goes up $100, homelessness goes up 9%. Homelessness is a housing problem. And you have no solutions for us here. You're talking about, again, trying to hide a problem rather than fix a problem. It is both cheaper and less challenging for us as a nation to keep people housed than, yes, to help them when they're on the streets. We need to help people when they're on the streets, but we need to fund rental assistance, transitional housing, permanent supporter housing, shelters, all this suite of services that help us keep our people on top of a certain line. Because it does cost more, and it is harder, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
When we talk about solutions and solution-driven policy, this is just not it, right? This is nothing more than literally criminalizing homelessness. And when we talk about whether or not allowing somebody to stay in a tent who has nowhere else to go, whether or not it's moral or humane, well, the reality is that there's $150 million in HUD grants that would directly eradicate homelessness that's frozen, that is not being used, and the Trump administration is choosing to do that. We are not solving the problem. We're not asking ourselves at all right now in this committee, well, why are people experiencing homelessness? Well, let's think about it. And my colleague from Florida started to get into it. We are in a housing crisis. We know that. That isn't a DC thing. That's an American thing. It's all over the country. Wages have been stagnant for decades. Grocery prices have not come down. The student loan crisis is ballooning. Joblessness is at a high, and instead of addressing that there are more people seeking a job right now than there are jobs for them to get into, the president is firing the messenger because he doesn't ever want to deal with things just like the homeless crisis. He wants to sweep that also under the rug. And we also just saw the largest wealth transfer from the poor to the rich in the bill passed by Republicans. And this is all after Trump forced D.C. to clear out encampments and then shut down the Interagency Council on Homelessness. And your Republican Congressman Zarrell, it's a crime to not have a home, but there won't be any resources to help you if you are experiencing homelessness. You're going to just be charged and fined and imprisoned, and it's going to make your life harder. Trump and Republicans are treating people like they're subhuman, people at their lowest, and many of these folks are veterans that served this country. It's callous and it's evil. Criminalization does not end homelessness. This is lazy and dishonest policymaking. We have solutions for the homelessness crisis in this country. Republicans are just refusing to implement them because they don't believe that the cost is worth it. They don't believe it's worth pulling you out of poverty. They don't believe it's worth educating folks in the district. They don't believe it's worth feeding folks in the district. That's why they cut SNAP. They don't believe it's worth you being healthy. That's why they cut Medicaid. They would rather fine and jail you. They'd rather criminalize you and make your lives even harder, perpetuating these cycles of poverty and inequality. Criminalizing homelessness actually just makes the problem worse, according to research, not just me, research.
Homelessness is a policy decision that can be solved with policy. But we need the right people in power, like Frost, Lee, and other progressives, to actually get the job done instead of perpetuating the cycle. Again, this is an issue that could be easily solved, especially when you think about all the money we use for other ventures that are not practical, that are not safe, that are not helping American lives. We could use that from the homelessness, right? For the homeless. We could use that, right? For people who have mental health issues and get them the actual help they need. But instead, we're doing what we're doing right now, and that is just harming so many marginalized communities and people who do not have the resources to sustain their lives or live in a way that is beneficial to them and other people because of the circumstances that they grew up in or the circumstances that they face now because of how our system works and the people in power who do not care about homeless people whatsoever. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.